Welcome back to episode 8 of the Surfside Recovery Podcast. My name is Brian Licata, your handsome host, alongside with Mr. Ian Koch. He's the Grand Poobah, head honcho, and the fearless leader of the Surfside Recovery team. Last week, we discussed... what was it? I'm off
starting
today.
at the bottom.
I'm off today. Yeah, we talked about starting at the bottom. And today we're going to talk about how to handle a relapse. We can do it from two different perspectives. One, if you're the person who is who has relapsed, or I guess from the family perspective as well. So what are your first thoughts on this?
I just want to say this. I just got a text message.
Mm-hmm. Just now
from someone. So good story. So basically, long story short, chronic relapser has like 8 months sober.
Now he does.
Yeah, his family literally tried to get him to Surfside for like a year and a half.
Mm-hmm.
He wouldn't even like discuss it with us. At one point, he even came down to Ventnor, caused a bunch of problems. Whatever came through our program, finally was like willing, did really well, had a bunch of problems going on. Sober, got himself in some trouble. There was like a mix up on his license. Yes, you know who you are. He just texted me, hey, everything's good. I just got some fines. So point being, it was a legitimate mistake, but this is like potentially something that could take a newcomer out, right? Like they finally get their shit together, they get their license back, and boom, by practicing the program, talking to people, talking about your fears, like all this stuff, he was able to, move forward, which is super, super cool. And I think, what we're about to talk about, I wasn't paying attention if you said the topic. Mm-hmm. You said the topic?
I said the topic.
Right? How to deal with a relapse. I think that's really important that, this is a story where someone didn't have to deal with a relapse because they were able to actually practice, the program and utilize the tools that are talked about in treatment and aftercare. And, luckily a small situation didn't turn into a disaster.
Right. Didn't have to be a disaster. I know from past experience, the way I handled relapses changed as the progression of my illness went along. So at first, I'd try to hide it. I'd try not to let anybody know. I would start off slow, maybe by drinking or smoking weed. And as it progressed, like I wasn't playing any games. Like if I came home into an Oxford house or a recovery house or wherever I was living, and they're like, hey, we need you to pee in this cup. I'm like, no, thank you. Can you help me pack my bags? And then I would just grab my stuff and go out. And I've always had a big problem with people who take other people out with them. That was one thing that I never did. There was times where I would end up using with somebody who was in the same program with me, but I wouldn't. And it's some sort of weird morale that doesn't make much sense. But that was one of those things, like I wasn't going to be like, hey, I'm going to get high. You should come with me. If I started getting high and then this person started getting high on their own, I didn't have a problem with meeting up with them afterwards. So I felt like I could hang my hat on that fact for a long time. I still kind of feel like that. And I don't know, just some weird, moral compass I had, I guess when I was using, that was like that. So take that for what it's worth.
I don't know. I look at relapse. So I don't believe that relapse is a part of recovery. I think that that's something a therapist made up one day and a whole bunch of other therapists hung on to.
You hear that?
Absolutely. Oh, it's okay. Relapse is a part of recovery.
Got it. Yes, I have.
Of course,
have heard that.
I know it happens. I don't think it is a part. Like I don't think it has to happen. I've seen enough people.
But do you think that's what they mean when they say it's a part of recovery, or they're just trying to cheer the person up?
Yeah, I think they're trying to cheer the person up.
Right.
Basically saying like, don't worry about it. You're going to be okay.
Mm-hmm.
I think if somebody does recovery, like really, if they're all in by the time they get here, I don't think they have to relapse.
Of course not.
I think that's nonsense.
I don't think that's what they're saying, though.
I do.
Okay. Well, I'm just going to disagree with you on that.
That's
It
fine.
doesn't sound like that's what they're saying.
That's fine.
Like cheering somebody up is different than being like, hey, yeah, you should relapse. You're supposed to relapse.
Okay, good. No. I agree with you. Do you know what newcomer hearing is?
What?
Newcomer hearing?
That was a joke.
Yeah.
So hold on. Let me take a stab at it. So newcomer hearing is what the newcomer hears when they come into the room.
Yes.
Selective hearing.
Yes. So
Okay.
newcomer hearing. So for instance, a lot of newcomers say.
Where's this term coming from? Is this like in AA and around AA? Is this something you just made up now?
I mean, I've been talking about it for a long time. I don't
Okay.
know if I've been talking about it like 12-step wise, or if I've been talking about it like clinically, or if it came from like NA or AA. I don't really know.
No idea. Okay.
But basically, like, newcomer hearing is, somebody shares, hey, my name's so-and-so, I choose not to use. The newcomer hears, okay, I just need to make a choice to not pick up. In theory, that makes a ton of sense.
Mm-hmm.
In practical application, it's almost impossible. Why? Because if you're powerless, you literally do not have the power to make a choice.
Mm-hmm.
That's why we call it powerless. Your brain doesn't work appropriately, and therefore you forget that this is a problem, and you pick it up again. That's why we say, actually, you don't have a choice.
Mm-hmm. Now, do you think that
What the person is saying when they say, I have a choice today, what they're saying is not, I have a choice to not use. They're saying, I have a choice to practice this program of recovery, which in fact is a separate choice from, right? It's two separate choices. One choice is to not use. Another choice is to practice a program of recovery. By default, if you choose not to practice a program of recovery, you're probably just choosing to not use, which is it's a different line of thought.
say that again?
If you're choosing to not
There's
use,
like a shitload of double negatives going on here.
This is above Brian's head.
Yeah.
If you're choosing to not use,
If you're choosing to not use.
right, that
Yeah.
is a choice. If you're choosing to practice a program of recovery, that is its separate choice.
Got it.
Because it's an action.
Right. Yeah. But by
Right.
choosing to
Let me explain with the cup. I'm choosing to not pick up the cup.
Right. Got it.
I'm choosing to pick up the cup.
Got it.
It's an action. If I'm choosing to practice the program of recovery, I'm doing something.
Mm-hmm.
Because practicing a program of recovery is doing something.
Right. But by product of choosing to do the program of recovery, you're not picking up a drink.
That's a whole nother, yes, that is a byproduct.
Right.
If I'm just choosing to not use,
Mm-hmm.
I'm not doing anything except choosing to not use.
Mm-hmm.
For most addicts and alcoholics, that choice to not use must be followed by a bigger choice, which is to practice a program of recovery.
Mm-hmm.
So when the person in the meeting is saying, I am choosing to not use, what they're really saying is, I'm choosing to practice a program of recovery.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So newcomers hear the person say, oh, relapse is a part of recovery.
Mm-hmm.
So therefore, they leave treatment, they go get high, and they're like, whatever, it's just a part of it. I'll go back to treatment.
Mm-hmm.
I wrote that article. We reposted it recently about when treatment becomes people, places, and things.
Right.
Right. And it starts to become this cycle where, people just go in and out of treatment together to like have a place to stay for a period of time to get physically healthy, so they can get high again, and then they leave and they get high again, and then they go back to treatment together.
Mm-hmm.
And we've seen that in this area. We've seen it all over the place.
Yeah, I've seen it in my
It's
time
everywhere.
through treatment centers. Usually, I always went to treatment when I heard somebody say on Saturday night at a meeting, she was out of money and out of a good idea, and that's why she went to rehab.
Yeah.
That's how it always was for me. I was out of money and there was no good ideas of how to get any more money, and that's when I went to treatment.
Yeah. But people do that as a group, right? And then they'll all funnel into treatment together.
Right.
And then they'll get out of treatment and all go to the same sober living.
Uh-huh.
And then they get high together.
Yeah. I guess I've never really, I've definitely not done that, but
People do. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying you have.
right. No,
but
no,
that
I
is,
know,
like,
I know that.
that's a thing.
I'm just trying to think of a few people that I know who've gone like that. And I think we've had a couple groups of guys come into our house and same thing happened, more or less.
Yeah, and so I posted about it in that thing. It was like 2 summers ago. And against my better judgment, there was a guy who wanted to come, so we brought him in. And against my better judgment, the facility called and said, "Hey, so-and-so would also like to come."
I think we're talking about the 2 same kids.
Correct. We are.
I was working there, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
But, right, homeboy and other homeboy have been known to AMA treatment together.
Right.
And against my better judgment, I was like, "Oh, we'll be different. We'll help them."
Right.
Whatever, we bring them in, and what did they do? They went out the window.
Mm-hmm.
Why they went out the window, I don't know. They could have gone out the door, but whatever, they went out the window. Maybe it was more exciting that way. Maybe they're just really dumb. I don't know. And guess what? They got high together. And then what did they do? They went to treatment together. And then what did they do? They left that treatment center together, got high together, and then went to a different treatment center together.
Mm-hmm.
The initial article I wrote was about 2 women that did it years ago.
Okay. 2 women that you knew?
No, they were coming in and out in our area down here in Oxford houses. More recently, 2 guys died that had been going in and out of treatment together.
Mm-hmm.
So this is a thing, and basically what happens is they're like, "Oh, relapse is a part of recovery." And look, I get it. And I said this recently, and maybe it's controversial, but like, why in the world would you hang out in a 12-step meeting if you don't want to get clean?
Well, I don't necessarily know if that assertion's true.
It's 12-step recovery.
I've never once been in some sort of meeting without a small desire to get clean.
Okay. So why would you go to the meeting and not participate in the 12-step program?
I mean, I have no idea. I did it though.
Why? That's
because I wanted to get clean, but I didn't want to do any of the work. It's like we were talking about in the last podcast.
Sure, but it doesn't work like that, right? And I think that, so this is my point. If you go to McDonald's and you're expecting to get an organic vegan salad, you're at the wrong place.
Right.
To go to a 12-step program and to think that you're just going to go to meetings when it is a 12-step program, right? To go and not want to sponsor and to not want to do any of the work.
Mm-hmm.
Do we even want to classify that as a relapse, or do we want to classify that person as being an idiot for shopping in the wrong store? Right.
Yeah. I've had that same conversation with people before. Do you really even want to credit it as a relapse? I mean, I guess it really all depends on whatever your definition of a relapse is. I think thinking about it in that way is a little too analytical, or maybe rational is more the way of putting it. We're speaking in rational terms to groups of people who are acting irrationally.
But we're also talking to people that have been struggling, and I know that because I'm getting text messages from them.
Mm-hmm.
And look, there are people who are sitting in these quote unquote 12-step meetings, allowing people to come in and out and in and out and in and out.
Mm-hmm.
And every single time they come back in, everybody co-signs their crap.
Mm-hmm.
And I just want to be very clear that, like, you are allowed to do that. Yes, you can do that. You can come and you can sit in meetings without having to do anything.
Mm-hmm.
But that doesn't mean you're practicing a program of recovery.
Mm-hmm.
It means you're waiting to ultimately use again.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think the bigger problem there, and something I also have conversations with people a lot, is that, in any organization or any group where you're gathering more than one person in, there's going to be people who do whatever it is by the book, and then people who don't. So you're going to have people, for lack of the better word, who don't really give a shit, and yet people who care. And I'm not saying that the people don't care. I think it's just like you're going to have assholes in any situation that you're in. So whether you're at work, whether you're playing on a sporting team or anything like that, or even in an AA or at your church function, like, people are going to suck no matter where you go. So I think we just see it because the concentration of people in our area of AA is smaller than other large groups, that they stick out.
I'm not talking about just our experience. Remember that I've lived in 7 different communities.
Yeah, well, that just proves my point even further, that it's all over the world.
It's everywhere.
Yeah,
and I think that's
a human nature thing over anything else.
I think it's really important to understand that, like, if you're shopping for something and you're in the wrong store, it is not the store's fault that you can't find what you're looking to buy.
Well, that's just ignorance on the part of the person.
Correct. Mm-hmm. So is a relapse, like, is it legitimately a relapse if someone comes to whatever, gets out of treatment? Maybe they're not even going to go to 12-step recovery. Maybe they get out of the treatment. Maybe they've been told that all they have to do is not pick up. Mm-hmm. They don't pick up, and then they get high again.
Mm-hmm. So they do pick up. So I guess
I guess what I'm saying is all data shows that you need to be doing something. Mm-hmm. I don't care if it's 12-step recovery, therapy, medicated assisted treatment. Like, you've got to be doing something proactively to not pick up, aka participating in a program of recovery. Right. I am preferable to 12-step recovery. Everybody knows that. If you don't know that, now you know that. But whatever, whether it's therapy in church, whether it's church and celebrate recovery, whether it's, being of service at the mission and doing refuge recovery, like, whatever, that you're actively trying to better yourself as a human being, period. Or not use.
Right. So you were talking a lot about, like, what does it make any difference on what, like, if it's considered a relapse or not?
No, I think that's all personal. I think that, obviously if you pick up and you're using, I would consider that a relapse. But if we're talking abstinence-based recovery, we're talking all mood or mind-altering substances. If we're talking this new foo-foo model of recovery where you can, like, smoke weed and drink beer, but, like, not shoot heroin, that's a whole nother story.
Who's calling that recovery?
Well, just wait.
Okay.
I mean, it happens all the time. There are people that I went to college with. There are people all over the place and they consider themselves in recovery because they don't use heroin anymore. Mm-hmm. They still smoke weed and still drink, but they're in recovery. And that's fine. They're allowed to believe that. And quite honestly, I would also believe that they are in recovery from heroin addiction. Mm-hmm. I would never co-sign anybody who had that problem ever using any other mind-altering substance. But so harm reduction, right? Harm reduction is decreasing the harm. We talked about that with the medicated assisted treatment model. Harm reduction is now becoming recovery. Recovery used to be 15 years ago, 10 years ago. Recovery used to be more or less, don't quote me on this, but more or less considered abstinence-based. Mm-hmm.
In the eyes of?
Most
of what?
Professionals, 12-step community, recovery was really considered abstinence-based. Mm-hmm. But as we've moved forward with the opiate epidemic, we've gotten closer to the medicated assisted treatment model, which is not abstinence-based. And I'm not talking like Prozac or Lexapro or Wellbutrin.
You're talking about Suboxone and Methadone,
things like that, where that is less abstinence-based and it's more medication-based. But now as we're moving towards legalization of marijuana, we're going to start to see... Mm-hmm. Right? Like, there's people who are literally trying to go to rehab with their medical marijuana card and wanting to be a part of quote unquote recovery, which they can be, but still smoking weed.
He's at a loss for words for the first time ever. In the podcast.
And look, if you are shooting 5 bags a day and you're just smoking weed every day and you believe that's good and your quality of life is good, rock on. Like, I'm not going to stop you.
Mm-hmm.
I would challenge you that it could be better.
Right.
100%. I challenge every single person it would be better.
Mm-hmm.
And every single person's going to say, oh, no. It's whatever, but fine, whatever. You want to spend $60 on an eighth of pot every week? That's your business.
Right. Of course. Yeah. To each their own. Like we talked about on episode 5 when we were talking about legalization, like it's not going to work for me, but who am I to say that it's not going to work? Like I have a good friend of mine that I used to work with who went into boxing for like a year and a half. He smokes a little bit of pot and drinks a little bit, and I mean, he's not doing dope anymore.
And we all know those people.
Right.
I mean, for me, like, and again, like recovery is this loose word. Like for me, recovery really is about overall quality of life.
Right.
Like I want my life to be better than it is today. In 5 years, I want it to be better.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but I think that's what the cool part about being in a 12-step fellowship or in recovery is that, your definition of what you want doesn't have to equal to mine or anybody else's really.
Yeah.
So the one thing that I struggle with sometimes is when I hear people talk about like this is how it used to be or this is how it was, and then they're not doing anything about to try to like hold up to that. I have a big problem with people doing that really in anything. People complaining that they don't make enough money. Well, it's like, why don't you
do something different? Find
a new job. If you don't like your situation, like you can change it. And I hear a lot in 12-step recovery too, like this has gotten soft. This is that. It's not like it was. Like, well, what are you doing to not make it like that? Like I don't
go start a different meeting.
Yeah. I don't see you doing anything to change that. And maybe it's just, I don't see it.
Well, and this is my point, right? Like the folks who say that they're in recovery but just smoke weed, they're going to tell you that they're fine with the way things are. But again, I would challenge that, like, if they stop smoking weed, things could potentially be better.
Yeah, that's it. Same person will probably tell you, man, if you just drink a couple beers and smoke a little pot, your life will be better.
Yeah, I'll get arrested. I mean, I've proven that to myself.
Hey, we don't have time for that.
But ultimately, dealing with a relapse, I think, whatever your relapse may be, like, I think the most important thing is to, like, buckle down. Mm-hmm. Like look at. I think a lot of us, in one of the 12-step books, it says they've tried other methods which have failed completely. And I think what's really important to look at is that, like, what have you tried to do to, quote unquote, and I'm not even going to say get sober, but quote unquote, get your shit together. And I mean, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Get your shit together.
I agree. I'm laughing because it's true.
Yeah. And have they failed completely? Right. Mm-hmm. So if you tried the, like, I'm just going to smoke weed thing and that didn't work, or you tried the, like, I'm just going to drink and I won't do heroin thing and that mm-hmm. didn't work, or I'm going to be completely abstinent and I'm only going to go to meetings, but I'm not going to work any steps or have a sponsor, and that didn't work. Right. I think you've got to keep that, like, that tally. Like I've got someone who's pretty close to my heart where, they're struggling, and there's been some things, like, I've mentioned to them multiple times, like, look, these two things are a major, major problem.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's very, very simple to see when these two things start to happen, you're very close to a relapse.
Right.
No. And then what happens? Those two things start, and then what?
Yeah.
They relapse. Right? Like triggers.
Mm-hmm.
Addiction for Dummies. If they were going to write a black and yellow book, I think I have one called Walking Dogs for Dummies. Addiction for Dummies would be avoid people, places, and things.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah. Don't do the same kind of stuff that sets you off. I think it was really important for me. Something that I got out of the last treatment center I was in. I got some sort of way where what I did was kind of look at each of the treatment centers I was in and learn something from what worked well and then what didn't work well. And I always say this anytime I'm speaking at a rehab or a treatment center. Like, I was fortunate enough to not overdose in the period of time that I need, like, in this period of time where I could learn stuff that I needed and then take the aggregate of that, and then that's how I got sober, more or less. So I think that's really important. Like, if you do relapse and you come back, like, you got to take an honest look at yourself and realize what worked, what didn't work. And once I did that, figured out what worked, what didn't work, and then double down on the stuff that worked. That's the only time I ever saw any success.
It's like, and I say it a lot. I lecture in in facilities and have on a weekly basis for years. And, you know, like I'll see people and I won't even have realized that they've discharged and come back.
Mm-hmm.
It's been that quick.
Right.
And when I find out, I always say to them, well, what happened? Oh, you know, no, I don't know. That's why I'm asking. Why don't you enlighten me? What happened?
Right.
And it's always the same story.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, well, I got out and I used. Well, why didn't you do any of the stuff we just talked about?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, well, you know, and it's like the excuses come, and it's like delusion is we don't know we're full of crap.
Mm-hmm.
Denial, they say, stands for didn't even know I was lying.
Right.
Denial is like you saying to me, this sweatshirt is gray, me knowing the sweatshirt is gray, and being like, no, it's really like white and black slightly mixed together. Right. Trying to deny the truth. Delusion is if I legitimately think this is pink.
Right.
Right. So what happens is folks get out of treatment and they are in a state of delusion where they think they have time to like do it tomorrow.
Right.
Or do it next week.
Yeah, and that just really speaks to the power of drugs and alcohol over people.
If you're powerless, how do you have time to do that?
Right.
You don't.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So back to what I was talking about, choice. Like, if you have the ability to choose to not use, when you get out of treatment, you could choose to not use for a period of time until you decided to go get your shit together. Mm-hmm. But if you're powerless, you got to get out of treatment and get moving.
Right.
You don't have time to wait. You really, it is legitimately life and death for a lot of people. Like this, like I'll do it. And right, we call it the I'll do it tomorrow syndrome. Right, like I'll go to the meeting tomorrow. Oh, I missed the meeting today. I guess I'll go tomorrow. Mm-hmm. So then tomorrow rolls around and they pick up the meeting book and they're like, well, there's none in my town. I'll go the next day. I'll go Wednesday.
Right.
Wednesday rolls around. They're like, oh man, I missed the meeting. I'll definitely go Thursday. They forget to go Thursday. Friday, they're like, oh, I didn't even go yesterday. I'll definitely go Saturday. Mm-hmm. And next thing you know, they haven't been to a meeting for a week and they're drunk. And the three biggest excuses for people to not go are they're too busy, they're too tired, and they're too drunk, which are the same, seriously, which are the same three biggest reasons that people who get sober eventually relapse is, right, they're doing the deal, they're going to meetings, maybe working with a sponsor, working some steps, but then they get too busy. And then they get too tired and they don't have time, right? Oh, I worked all day. I just want to relax. And then they're too drunk and they can't go.
Right. Yeah. No, yeah. I've seen that time again.
Yeah. How many times have you seen that?
Yeah.
How many times have you done that?
Yeah. Probably the first 2 times. And then everything else after that was just like, I just want to get high. Yeah. It wasn't even like I didn't want to do the other stuff. I was like, I just want to get high. And that I guess the mental obsession, if you want to call it that, is what would lead me to get high. So I think that was a good conversation. It wasn't what I expected it was going to turn out to, but I think that was solid.
Maybe we should do what we should turn it out to be.
What?
What was the conversation supposed to turn out to be?
I don't know. I honestly just didn't know what to expect. Like when we were talking about the topic of like how to handle relapse, I wasn't really sure.
I don't think I was going to go this way.
Yeah, I wasn't sure what to really expect. And that's why when I mentioned the topic, I was like, I don't really know what we can talk about on that, but it was good.
Well, I think that's ultimately where people just got to like suck it up and they got to get back and they got to reevaluate what did they do wrong.
Yeah, or keep getting high. The choice is yours of what you want to do.
Which is a bad idea.
Yeah, no, I agree with you.
Let's be clear, we're not condoning that. This is, Brian on the podcast said I can go get high. Yeah. No, that's not what we're saying.
Not what I'm saying at all. Not what I'm saying at all. But if you are struggling with anything like that, feel free to drop us a line at structuredsoberliving.com. And you can check us out on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. We've got a YouTube page. And we have a really cool 5K coming up in June. It's called Scott's Trot 5K. You can check that out also on Facebook, and you can give our boy Andrew an email or something like that if you want to get involved.
Andrew Surfside at gmail.com. It's going to be up in Passaic County, New Jersey. We are looking for some sponsors. Any treatment centers interested in sponsoring. We're hoping to have a couple hundred people up there. Mm-hmm.
Should be a good event.
Raise some money for a good cause.
Should be a good event. So thanks everyone for watching, and we'll see you next week.
Peace.